That was a graceful entrance. Okay. I'm trying something new, so. All right. I was going to write this really deep, profound nonfiction piece, but of course that didn't work. So what I'm reading to you today is really, really, really rough, but it goes with the spiritual revelation, something that's been on my mind a lot lately. So I don't have a working title yet, but one I have come up with is Science and Nature, a Matter of Faith.
Oh, nice.
Okay. One of my favorite quotes comes from that so simultaneously revered and revered scientific pioneer, Charles Darwin. There is a grandeur in this view of life with its several powers having been originally breathed into a few forms or into one, and that whilst this planet has gone on cycling on accordingly to the fixed law of gravity, from so simple a beginning, endless forms, most beautiful and most wonderful, have been and are being evolved. Darwin was, of course, speaking to the endless process of evolution on planet Earth and the mind-boggling types of life forms that have been and are coming into being since life sparked into existence in the primordial soup those many eons ago. But the spark that started the process to begin with my meager understanding of scientific discussion, still up for debate. That is, of course, where many people turn to religion for answers. Religion. Perhaps no other topic has stirred the same passion, anger, political vitriol, war, and even intellectual debate in the span of human history. Unlike science, religion is unquantifiable. You believe or you don't. But this is what I believe. Religion is a human construction to help us make sense of what we don't understand. However, as there are endless forms of religious thought and practice across the globe, some beautiful, some painfully ugly, there is something intrinsic in human beings for us tiny little naked apes to find spiritual fulfillment. And just as our DNA mutates and changes to adapt to the world around us, our spiritual selves must also grow and transform if we hope to survive. As I reflect on my own spiritual odyssey through my relatively short lifespan thus far, it feels like I've shapeshifted through several forms to get to where I am now, what I feel like is the best version of myself thus far, but still with plenty of room for transformation. I'm an 8th generation Texan, so it probably comes as no surprise that I was raised as a Christian. As in, my grandfather is a pastor of the Church of Christ and baptized me when I was 11 years old. I spent my childhood attending Sunday school and church camp, vacation Bible school, and briefly singing in the church youth choir. I watched TV shows and movies on the Trinity Broadcasting Network and still remember the words to most of the hymns I learned in my childhood. I had a glass cross with a little gold Jesus above my bed for many years. But even from a young age, something just didn't feel right. Since I could read, I was enamored with stories of magic and enchantment, of creatures such as fairies and ghosts and the powers of nature, things that the religious authorities of my youth taught were at best silly fantasies and at worst the work of Satan. I was obsessed with dinosaurs as a young child, which conflicted with the biblical view of creation that was drilled into me at church and from relatives. My grandparents were creationists. My mother, who studied biology in college, said that science was simply the work of God. Those conflicting views were confusing to me even as a 4-year-old, aspiring paleontologist. I also never could understand why, in my church's view, women could not hold positions of religious authority or speak in the sanctuary. The divisions of thought between Catholicism, Protestantism, and the thousands of denominations it encompassed, and even among my own family members, further baffled me. My grandfather and step-grandmother belonged to the Church of Christ, my mother and biological grandmother Baptist, my aunt and uncle were Lutherans, and my aunt, who had been born in China, belonged to a Chinese Christian denomination. Christians could argue and even fight amongst themselves, but collectively all go to heaven while everyone else burns in a pit of fire for eternity. It made no sense. I tried to squash those doubts and questions, to bury the discomfort I felt as deep as it could go, so those I loved wouldn't see my blasphemy as I thought of it then. I volunteered to lead the prayer at family dinners, took communions, signed up for every church retreat I could. I even threw away a feng shui cow I had placed in the western corner of my room because it was idolatry. But I never managed to make any lasting friendships with the other children who found my love of anime and fantasy fiction strange and my interest in astrology teetering on sinful. My desire to get tattoos when I grew up was deemed desecration of my body, a sacred temple. The tipping point came when I was 14. One of my best childhood friends came out as gay at the beginning of 8th grade. The abuse he took in our small conservative hometown caused him to transform from a gentle, soft-spoken boy into a withdrawn, sarcastic adolescent. Yet he never tried to hide or downplay who he was. At that point, I knew I could not keep pretending to follow a religion where the majority of teachers I'd been exposed to in my youth taught that people like my friend were going to hell. And while I didn't know it then, this was also the first avenue that opened for me to explore my own queerness. Are we out of time? Okay, I'll continue later. Like I said, it's a really rough, long.
David Lester Young.
Ben Franklin.
All right. Somebody get back the key.
He's got like a set of 88 keys there.
Oh, please, do not barbecue me like a Franklin barbecue. I'm so happy. I'm all about poetry and the keys of poetry. I'm just keyed up. And keyed down. I'm just keyed up all over the place.
Ready to roll.
Midlife piecemeal testimonial. I had to come up real quick with something for this. Thrash, shredded, torn, asunder, wove, deep recurring deposit depression, filled pits, building midlife compost, crisis piles, wandering religion, lost found, ever more lost. Speck of matter, congealing renewal attempts, piece by piece, patchwork, quilted puzzle, sewn together, tattered, weather worn, ragdoll, pin and needle, sharp piercings. Scrape total disarray, sorting out past due remnants. Shed the anchor in sinking quicksand sea. Pulley upon that last thread of prayer, where within everything seemed so impossible. Upon dire faith, one finally reaches that turning point, that spark of spiritual renewal.
Oh.
Are you a flute? He is a flute.
A flautist?
Flautist. He does not.
Never can say that.
Influence the flout. I come from the desert, and the best silences I've ever experienced have been away from light and across the Nullarbor or in the Gibson Desert. Used to hitchhike whenever I felt the weight of the world, and I'd travel as far as I could until the mood shifted like a cloud, or I'd walk into the water and go as deep as my feet would take me. So I like the desert, and I like curved lines. When distance to itself reveals depths and dimensions, finger pointing, what is beneath meets what is above, in a love line that kisses all horizons. Sparseness, clear, austere, a stripping away of non-essentials. Walk away far enough, a different silence. Here, if you stop, silence catches up. It holds you in a grip that squeezes time out. Only lines define, refine this clarity. There is everything here, but not for you, me. It references itself outside our time frame, longer, deeper, wider, more than art, an ecology of core and primal, fire, earth, air. This is not where you came from. It is where you journey to. Yoro, Yoro. Time has no beginning. Time has no end. Curves are us. Our skin has no straight lines. Only the horizon merges, sea, land, sky. Why it curves is this parabolic world. All that is natural finds forms consonant to energies. Admire shapes of clouds, but avoid those storms. Enjoy river, but not swim out of depth. Stand with trees, even as they're chopped. For we who love, but rarely preserve, adore, but need more walls for art, when truth and life are deserts and cities, or deserts in cities, and we are what we love from a distance or close up. The last death of 2016 was the last Shaker who died at 103. I've always admired Quakers and Shakers for being brave, for their good vibrations. As soon as we choose to move, Spirit moves with us. Shakers believe this fundamentally. Long before the shake, rattle and roll play of rock music, people moved in devotional manner, much like the sacred Hopi dances or Sufi dances or fire dances or any animating impulse which activated and opened chakras so that we might be aligned with spirits more healing than we. To move is to dance, said Snoopy. To dance is to live, said Snoopy. Shakers and Quakers and Baptist Pentecostals all vibrate on a moving frequency. In movement is connection. Those of stillness withdraw and dance within. Shakers were brave enough to move, and by so moving, to find themselves alive and well with this whole world watching.
Thank you, and thank you all for coming out. Our next show here, February 12th, and another Donna Birdwell, Dutchin Birdwell theme is romance and other patriarchal fantasies. My mouth didn't even want to say the word. Patriarchal fantasies.
I'm sorry, Teresa, was that romance or bromance?
Romance.
Okay.
Romance and other patriarchal fantasies. I can't say it. It's like my mouth doesn't want to say it.
Thank you, Teresa.
Yay!